Hey everyone, Mrhappy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mrhappy, aka Mrhappy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. That was a struggle to get through. It's 4 in the afternoon right now, and I've been up since 2 in the morning, so I'm not doing so hot right now. So I'm gonna say a couple things, and then we'll do the Q&A. I don't think it'll be another 45 to 50 minute Q&A unless I catch a second wind during this, which I sometimes do, to be honest. So update from last week with the hard drive update. I found a bunch of old assets that have managed to make it pretty easy to recreate a lot of the basic stuff. As you saw from last week's episode, there's things like the Patreon shout-out thing, which is more of like a generic template now until I actually have the time to fix it up properly, because I was traveling for 2 days last week. I actually have a couple of sponsored videos coming this week on some things that I got to see or try out, or have other things that I'm working on. Plus, like I said, I was up at 2 a.m. I'm doing raids at 3 a.m. Sunday, the day I'm recording this, and Monday, the day you're seeing this. So, I'm tired, man. But we're well on our way. I took the opportunity to upgrade my video editing software, which completely invalidates all my old templates anyway, because they can't be transferred into the new program. Figured it's the best time for me to get a little software upgrade, and that will mean that I have a much easier time with things going forward. I've already started creating new assets. I've got them backed up on a couple of hard drives, and everything's looking like it's all set to not be a disaster several years in the future, when I'm sure one of those hard drives is going to die at some point. But anyway, because I'm so tired, let's thank the patrons, and then let's get started with the Q&A. So, of course, our patrons, we thank them every week. Just an optional thing to support the YouTube channels, because YouTube sometimes not so great. It's just for the shoutouts, little scrolling thing on the screen, and on top of that, you support the channel. But appreciate it. It's completely optional. You don't need to do it. You're still getting all the content here on YouTube. They are just, they just get the little okay, I'm done. I can't English today. So let's thank the patrons of Darkness, Khuja, Jenova, and Kurenai Oni for being awesome supporters. They go above and beyond and have for quite some time now, and that's why they get their little pictures here on the beginning of Mondays. I got those out. I got those words out. Okay, I'm done with the thank you. I need to get to these questions before my English completely loses itself from how tired I am right now. So thank you, patrons. Let's go on to the questions. Oh boy. So this was the very first question I saw, and it says, hashtag Mrhappy Monday. Sorry, very long, very technical, much numbers. But how you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. Okay, so I clicked read more before I took it. It's actually not that long, in all honesty. Someone who doesn't really engage with people or streams or anything outside of my FC, I'm really confused about the idea that Red Mage is somehow more in need of buffs than the ranged physical role. Comparing the RDPS of all the jobs through Eden Raid shows that Red Mage is pretty significantly ahead of the 3 ranged jobs at high levels, and only really Machinist even competing in the 50-ish percentile. And in T, where the high-end parses you would assume are done by the best players possible, Red Mage is still more competitive than Dancer and Bard and completely eclipses Machinist. I certainly agree Red Mage is the worst example of balance within a given role, which will be part of my answer. It seems odd that the class seems to have more concern placed with how placed on it than the very insignificant underperformance of ranged physical as a role, especially with Machinist being nearly 400 RDPS away from Bard, nearly 2,000 away from Summoner at max parse. PS, I feel like the excuse of range get more mobility so that casters do less damage to kind of shot when Summoner gets to dance around. However, it wants for 40% of the rotation now. See, I agree with that in regards to Machinist, but anyway, let me just take this answer and start from the beginning. So you mentioned that it's a worst example of balance within a given role, and that is the concern. The way that Final Fantasy XIV is structured, 90 to 95% of raid compositions are going to consist of 1 melee, 1 range, and 1 magic DPS at least. That 4th DPS, mostly up to the group to decide, but more often will be a 2nd melee or a 2nd caster. But most groups don't completely let a role fall out of the group. While yes, that 1%, you can do math that would argue that maybe at very, very high performances that you could deal without that extra 1% and deal a net increase of raid DPS overall, assuming you don't need the various utilities such as the AoE damage reduction that comes from the ranged physical role. Of course, that's an additional assumption to make. That you could, again, completely remove the role and probably gain an overall increase, maybe double melee, double caster. But that's not how most groups tend to operate in Final Fantasy XIV. So Red Mage's balance compared to the other 2 jobs is paramount to the job actually being valued in content. A big thing Red Mage lost was that raises they're not useless in content, but we saw the depopularization of the raise utility. I can't get my words out right. Of the raise utility being so highly valued that red mage's go-to prog option. We saw people completely foregoing it and just going with black mages or summoners or one of each. And that's not really much a surprise, because if you're going to bring one of every role anyway, you're going to want the 2 jobs that are best in the caster role if you're bringing 2 of them, and red mage is almost never that option. Not to say red mages can't participate in the content, but that's how the higher end groups that you're referring to mostly here would look at it. So with that, that's why it is that way. As for the ranged physical role, I am a little concerned that they're going to be buffing red mage, and no mention of even slight number tweaks for the ranged physical role. That may be something we have to kind of provide feedback on and make sure it doesn't get too out of control, because I agree the mobility aspect is no longer really a reason why ranged physical should be as much less as they are. Utility is somewhat a reasonable choice, but you can't really, it's really hard to say that now, because it's not like red mage and summoner don't come with forms of utility. Yeah, they may not come with a, you know, an AoE damage reduction like the ranged physical role does. But when you look at Machinist, I feel like Machinist in particular is an example of a job that should have a much higher personal performance, considering it's like the black mage, as we like to call it, of the ranged physical role. Bard and Dancer provide enough RDPS across, I can't really say that, the numbers would say otherwise. They provide a satisfactory amount of RDPS on top of things like heals and Asunas and the damage reductions that kind of makes it so you overlook when they're not like doing red mage level numbers, which they shouldn't be doing, and no red mage should realistically be tying with Dancer Bard unless they're under extraneous circumstances. But yeah, it could get to a point. But red mage very much needs to be balanced against the other casters, and then we need to take a look at the ranged physical role as a whole and how it reacts to this. I kind of hope they just didn't mention that they were going to be small tweaks to range DPS numbers. And even then, I don't think they need very much. They just need a little bump, so they don't have that discussion about completely replacing the role. I rate on that role, so you kind of get where I feel with that one. All right, next one. This one was just a day ago. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, Haps. Hope you are doing well. Sleepy, but otherwise, I'm doing all right. First time asker, long time watcher, so I have a first time bonus of all the umbrellas you could possibly want. I'm not going to lie. I only like that feature because it annoys Sly. That's it. It's the only reason. My question is in relation to the upcoming fan fest that have just been announced. As someone who has never been to one and is looking to potentially trying to go, specifically London 2021, how would you describe your experience in being at one aimed at someone like me who has never been to one before? What is your favorite moment that has happened to you at one of these events? Love the content. Thank you very much. So I'm going to be upfront. I think I'm the worst person to ask this because the experience that I have as a content creator isn't 100% accurate to what someone else should expect. You know, I obviously dedicate the majority of my time to saying hi to people, talking to people, taking pictures. I do almost none of the events. I don't stand in lines for any of the events. I just don't do them. I don't try to cut in front of the line. I accept that that is not what my goal is at this event. My goal is mostly to socialize and to be a people pleaser and to see all the people who have supported me over the years, because I owe it to them that I'm there in the first place, at least there in the capacity that I am. So for me, it's literally just an opportunity to either see people I haven't seen in a while or, you know, take pictures and shake hands and do a lot of that, and to show my appreciation to the people who put me there in the first place. However, I will say the first Fan Fest, I probably have a better idea. Unfortunately, I was a little bit too egocentric at that first one, so I don't know how much I remember, because it was a very emotional first Fan Fest for me. I broke down in tears on the last day, just because I was having such a hard time coping with the environment, I suppose, as a content creator and as someone who was trying to do everything. I lost it on the last day. That won't happen to you, but you can lose faith if you get into these really long lines and then wipe on some of the encounters. I would expect to bring a lot of water to the convention center. I'd expect to stand in a lot of lines or commit to just watching panels. But we don't know how it's going to be laid out, since it's going to be in the San Diego Convention Center this time. Just find out if there's anyone in like your FCs or your link shells who are going, you know, link up with them. And otherwise, just try and chill, just try and relax, almost treat it like a vacation. You know, Final Fantasy XIV Fan Fest, they're big for us, but they're not big in the grand scheme of like conventions that happen. So, you know, figure out some sites that you can see in between panels or in the evenings or in the mornings, or if you just get bored on the show floor because you're not like trying to stand in these 2-3 hour lines to do whatever events they're going to be having. And, you know, just treat it like a mini vacation that has a Final Fantasy XIV themed convention around it. I think that's probably the best bet for you. Next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Yo, hey, hello, making sure that I don't miss the hello at the beginning. Hello and welcome. So me and my friend were talking about some old stuff that used to be in 14. I don't know if that means A Realm Reborn or 1.0. And one of those things were how skills used to have lore on them when you moused over them. Hey, that might be a 1.0 thing. I don't remember that. But then again, I rarely mouse over my skills to read anything but potencies, so I don't know about that. So there's lore to each and every skill. The lore books specifically have lore for the individual skills, as well as a lot of different equipment. Actually, I might just be thinking of the equipment, not the individual skills. Now I have to look in both the lore books to see if I'm, you know, talking out my ass a little bit there. But there certainly is lore to skills, but it's more so, at the very least, at the highest levels, it's explained via the quests how the job functions, and that these are kind of just extensions of that. But as for hovering over skills, I don't remember that. It's just, I haven't looked in ages, and I don't remember it being that way, and I don't remember much about 1.0 in regards to little details like that, so I honestly couldn't say for certain. Oh boy, this one's got a lot of text. Hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. Sup, Haps? Hello! I remember a few weeks back you wanting an overhaul for Monk. While I agree its current gameplay has become a bit stale, I feel it's more of a testament to whoever designed Monk in A Realm Reborn. I think it's the only OG A Realm Reborn job that's been able to keep its basic gameplay for almost 7 years. I have a few related questions. Some jobs recently have a well-designed gameplay similar to Monk. These include 4 new jobs, Dragoon and Bard. Do you see them as keeping their basic gameplay for many years and eventually becoming stale? What kind of changes do you think are reasonable? I think we're misunderstanding my statements about why I wanted an overhaul for Monk, but I'll read all 3 questions before I go into that. Or just different flavors on top of existing gameplay. 2, for jobs that haven't reached their equilibrium yet, do you want them to reach a state similar to others who have and get a well-defined basic gameplay related to the eventual too many jobs in the future? Do you think Square Enix will ever see Square Enix not changing jobs that are already relatively well-designed coming to an X-Pack, save for potency and animation changes akin to White Mage Stone Glare? So my entire point with the overhaul for Monk was not so much that it was stale, it's that every time a new expansion comes out, they add things to jobs. Like, that's inevitable. They're never just... So I guess to answer the third question, there's never going to be a point where they just say, no, you get nothing. They're always, from a marketing standpoint, going to want you to see the job that you play and be excited about something. And that's where Monk has suffered, because Monk gets, you know, one thing in a blue moon that they're excited about, and like 3 or 4 things that they're like, all right, I can situationally use that. And then maybe a balance change opens up something really cool, like the double tornado kick rotation we had during Stormblood. But it becomes a problem because they're never not going to try to add things to it. And this basic gameplay loop is as much a great thing as it is a problem for them from a marketing standpoint. Because the job performs fine. They've killed one of the most annoying things about it already, this expansion, because they don't want people doing those Anatman openers the way that they have been, or the way that they were at first. But the problem becomes they're always going to want to add something. And when you have such a well-defined gameplay, it becomes hard to get anyone excited about anything new. So this is where the staleness comes in. Because it'd be one thing if it was stale because they don't ever add anything. Because it functions so well, there's no point in ruining a good thing. But they always try to add something. And that in itself creates a separate problem altogether. I think you can't really compromise at least the whole stance dancing and the grease lightning. But you can overhaul the way those things interact with the job. Without necessarily changing the core 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 identity that it has when it's going through its different stances. Big example is the double true strike rotation, which really screws with my head after so many years of, you know, knowing to alternate every single time. Just my brain doesn't process that second true strike without more practice. So I guess I don't really know if I'm answering 1 and 2 at this point, because they're always going to add new things. Doesn't matter how much the basic gameplay is successful. At some point, people are going to say, to the point where they have to do something drastic. And Monk's in line for that more than any other job. Monk's in line for like an expansion of them going, all right, you know what? People are bored with it. We need to keep it good, we need to keep it similar, but we need to rewrite what it actually is. I foresee that being a problem with some other jobs as well, but it's not really much of a discussion yet because these jobs are newer. There's some clear things people would like to see changed or added to some of the jobs. And again, I think they need to look at the overall identity and see what can they shift and maintain that identity, maintain the equilibrium while also doing something different. And you know what? When that kind of thing happens, it always goes south. So I expect some very upset people going into 6.0, more so than usual. I don't know why. I just have a feeling about it in my gut. On to the next one. Hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. I always look out for My Happy Monday because I type My Happy sometimes and it's my name. Hey Haps, hope you're doing well, and I do and always hope you do well. Are you saying this so you don't have to say that in any future questions? Just be honest with me. No, I'm good. First question, so don't mind any mistakes in manners. You'll be alright. Quick review though, and last week in this video, you said that it would be hard for the team to develop more gears and weapons for the new jobs, so at one point they might go to 1 job per expansion. My question is, didn't they stop making 2 dungeons for the sake of quality? What quality is their aim, if not for 2 jobs? And I do ask serious, not joking or anything. So, I mean, there's a difference. You can't just say, oh, they did this with dungeons, which means they're going to equate that to jobs, because there's 2 entirely different design philosophies behind designing a dungeon as a piece of content versus designing a job which needs to function in all content, all the dungeons, all the 24 mans, all the 8 mans. Has to have a separate identity. Dungeons need to have separate identities, but they can also often have similar atmospheres to one another. A cave, a chapel, you know, things like that, a cliffside. You can make things beautiful and similar and still make them distinctly different. But the big thing with dungeons is they don't have to design a million gear sets for dungeons necessarily. They have to design 1 gear set for each of the sets of dungeons, but for ages now, even when they have 2-3 dungeons, since probably Heavensward, I think, they don't try to add like a ton of unique sets. They like lump unique sets together into groups of dungeons that share item levels, which I think is a smart decision. But that's not the thing. The problem becomes the sheer amount of things they need to create and keep this 4-month cycle. They've been very clear. If they would expand the cycle of content and say, oh, instead of, 15, 16 weeks, let's do 19 to 20 weeks, and then we'll stretch expansions every, 3 years instead of every 2 years. They could reasonably do that and kind of keep producing things at the exact pace. But I think a big reason as to why Final Fantasy XIV has survived the way that it has is because it's on that 3.5 to 4 month cycle, and that expanding it just to get a few more glam pieces by 4 weeks every 5 months is probably not going to go over as well as them trying to strictly adhere to that 4-month cycle. And I think they probably have the data to back that up. I believe it as someone who's played MMOs and have watched long patch cycles be, death nails for them, and how 14 has those dull moments, but always wraps people back in on those 4-month markers. It's just enough time to make you be like, oh, there's nothing to do, and then suck you back in with the latest trailer or the latest update. Happens to so many people. So I don't think these 2 things that you're saying are equatable. And they didn't just say they were stopping making 2 dungeons to increase the quality of the 1. They said because there's only 1, they'll increase the quality of it, but that's to take resources away from designing new dungeons, which have a very repetitive gameplay cycle, and look into other aspects of the game that can be improved. For example, getting a new trial like we are for the Relic questline, making the Relic questline more extravagant, more story-driven, which really looks to be a thing based on the most recent trailer, to have more development going into more a bigger variety of features, to see more unique MMO social aspects, things like that. I just won't be surprised if at some point, because of the sheer number of jobs they try to add every expansion, there just is going to be a point where adding 2 jobs in an expansion is really, really rough from re-looking at every other job's balance for the new level cap and the new content, and designing something new from scratch, and designing all the gear for all those things, unless they just lug it in with another, job's gear, which I guess technically does work out, but there's still gear that has to uniquely be developed for each of these jobs. There's so many little things that we can only speculate on, and that's all this is based on information they've given us. I just won't be surprised if that is a realistic problem for them at some point. All right, next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Happy, how you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. Your question from last week's episode about White Mage got me thinking. Is Y'shtola as a sorceress actually using her conjure abilities in more of an astral fashion along with Black Mage's abilities as opposed to being what should be a Red Mage who wields a staff? In previous response, you mentioned how White Mage is clearly using a lot of Umbral magic now with their Dia Glare and Holy spells, but Y'shtola is able to use water and wind, which previously were associated with white magic in the game, but are still aspected in a sense. So I never understood why she wasn't truly a Red Mage who uses a staff. However, I can't rationalize the idea that she's simply using more astral abilities as a hint towards being more of a Black Mage instead of Conjurer, because Black Mage is always a quintessential job that had to balance astral and Umbral ether. Help? I don't understand. So the easiest way to describe Y'shtola's sorceress is that she is just a master of all forms of magic. She's specifically a master of the astral aspect because she never needs to utilize the umbral aspect of any of them. She's essentially always in astral fire, I guess is the best way to put it. Or actually, you know what? It's probably she has a perfect balance of both and just goes through all of them with impunity. But she's a master of magics beyond all shadow of a doubt because she literally rotates between each of them, rotates between all of the elements, empowers them all after casting them all a single time, and then unleashes Foul, which could, I don't know if it's based on time or based on a rotation. I know from a lore perspective, I mean, like obviously she has a set rotation of her spells and then goes and casts Foul, and then she also has the triple cast Fire Force. So she clearly finds Fire 4 to be the most destructive of her magic because that's her, I need to make up for all this time. Let me go ham with a bunch of Fire 4s. That's the inner Black Mage of her. Nice snort me. But yeah, it's most likely she's either completely mastered one of the aspects, either astral or umbral. Hard to tell because we can't see MP values, we can't see we can't see into the ether of the way that they work lore-wise, or she's got a perfect balance of both and just, again, cast spells with impunity and just doesn't even need to think about it. We know she's lost her sight. Maybe that's heightened some other senses. She uses her other senses more, and we know that's killing her slowly. And so, yeah, there's a lot of questions there, but honestly, I wouldn't worry about it because she's not collecting ether. The biggest thing that makes her not a red mage is the lack of the crystal medium, which gathers red and black ether so that it can be infused into the sword and then used for the enhanced skills. It also acts as, what's the word I'm looking for? You connect it to the sword when you're casting the magic. I forget what the word I'm looking for is. When you make a staff out of that. But she essentially doesn't have a vessel for collecting white and black mana. So that's a big thing that automatically disqualifies her from being a, quote, red mage with a staff. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Howdy. How are you? I'm getting more tired as this video goes. I put a lot of energy into that last one. Long-time viewer, first-time asker. Someone who means healer. I definitely believe we need another healer as our next job. I've wondered, though, what about a caster class like Sorcerer Sorceress? Wow, what a way to tie into the last question. With all of the 8 love we've gotten, it makes me wish we had a class similar to Sorceress. I understand those who may think it'd be too close to Black Mage, but I think this video has shown her more gravity time energy attacks. I think it would be interesting. Well, keep in mind, that has nothing to do with specifically being a sorceress. A sorceress doesn't innately have the ability to control time. You have to remember how Ultimecia kind of came to use her powers in the first place, and especially to empower them the way that a lot of Final Fantasy VIII takes place, is actually through a machine that is used that harnesses What's-Her-Face's time powers, Elone's time powers, the Elone Project, the machine that Ultimecia uses to try and attempt the time compression in the first place. While Ultimecia does have that, that's not what defines her as a sorceress. That's what defines Elone, and Ultimecia is manipulating that power. Renault, who is also a sorceress, and Adele, also a sorceress, they don't have these innate powers over time, earth, or gravity. It's just a generic term used to describe what Final Fantasy VIII would consider a witch. Not to mention we also have Sorceress in the form of Y'shtola, and that would be confusing, because she's essentially, as we just went over, a very particular style of Black Mage. A super Black Mage, if you will. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps, hope things are well. Got a story question for you from Shadowbringers. I guess that means technically spoiler warning since they're saying this if you haven't done Shadowbringers. So the way I usually do it is if there is, I guess I haven't even really been giving it crap as of late. If I do a thumbs up, it usually means that there's spoilers incoming, and then I turn it off on the screen. I haven't done this in ages, but I guess I can do it now. And then I thumbs up again when I'm done talking about spoilers. So when you see the thumbs up again, then, you're good. 3, 2, 1, let's go. Emmett said the Ascians messed up with the returning of the first world they messed with, the 13th, by the way. So does that mean they've ruined their chances of fixing the original world like they wanted? They haven't given up hope on the idea of restoring the 13th to a rejoinable shard. You know, they can't, but if they can't do the other 12 perfectly, then they have a bigger problem on their hands. The 13th essentially would pose no opposition in regards to, I guess, a controlled opposition from a sentient force. It's just the void, which is like all-consuming. So if they can come up with a method of fixing that, which, you know, they're as hellbent as they are, of course they're going to look for a solution, then they'll try to fix it. And they'll push it just to the point that they need it and cause that last calamity, and it would be done. They got bigger problems in the form of us, though, so I don't think it'll probably come down to that. You know what I mean? Oh, and I almost always forget this, and that's why I stopped doing it. Now the spoilers are over. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. I don't know how many more of these I'm doing, by the way. I'm really, like... I'm dying here. Hello, Haps. Long time no post, but here I am. I hope you're alright and everything is good, and that pizzas are full of pepperonis. I had pepperoni pizza yesterday and today. I had some of it yesterday, and then I had the leftovers today. Anyway, quick question. In this video, you spoke about the potential of the last boss of Eden's verse, and that you would like it to be Shiva. I kind of agree with it, but I wonder, would you prefer it to be Shiva, or for it to be a brand new boss specific to Eden's story, like Voidwalker, for example? Also, seeing how crazy Titan was, what'd you think of Ravana boss fight? Anyway, cheers from France. So I'll actually do this in reverse order. The whole point of the primal summonings is that we're returning aspects to the empty over on the first. And so it's not just a matter of us reimagining a boss fight and going with it. It needs to make sense from an ether standpoint. We already know we have Titan. We already know we have Ifrit coming, and that pretty much covers Ravana because those are his two main aspects that we're going to be dealing with. So, not that it couldn't be cool, but it's not... It's also possible Ravana may somewhat inspire Ifrit. We've seen the new design, and it's very much not like the Ifrit we know. Nothing like the Ifrit we know, as a matter of fact. And it's probably drawn from multiple sources of fire-aspected ether that we've encountered. Ravana's a possibility. Belias is a possibility. Heck, the Ifrit... Tombstone armor in 3.2 was monk-themed, and he looks to be a monk in... Eden's verse, so even that could be somewhat of an inspiration. It's really hard to tell what exactly is going to warp this Ifrit into the version we see, but I think Ravana could be cool, but I don't think it's something we should expect, so I don't really like to think about it too much past that. As for my other question, I wanted to be Shiva as the last boss of Eden's verse more than anything else for one particular reason. We got our Super Titan. We're going to get another, like, you know, super cool transforming boss or something as E8. You know, it's probably unavoidable. That being said, if they don't use Shiva as E8, she has to be probably E9. Because they're not going to end all of Eden with Shiva. You know, that's just, there's other plot lines at play here that feel more important than that. So I wanted them to get all four of the remaining primals out of the way in Eden's verse. So that way we have room to completely explore the Gaia and Void story that seems to be unfolding with Rian and Eden itself. And also, Shiva just deserves it more than any of the other Realm Reborn primals. Like, yeah, Titan scarred us. Like, you know, it's a very memorable boss from the player's perspective, not from the Warrior of Light or the Warrior of Darkness's perspective necessarily. But Shiva had a profound impact on the story. Isael, Hraesvelgr, the Dragon Song War. If there's going to be something that emotionally we cannot fathom or create accurately, or something that we would create so accurately it's almost more dangerous, it would be Shiva. And I just feel that Shiva deserves it more than the rest, and that's why I want Shiva as the last boss of Eden's verse, and not the first boss of Eden 9 through 12. Oh, this is a nice one-liner. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays, hashtag first time asker. Hi ho, ho yo, it's time to say hello. Honestly, I see you've paid attention to my previous videos. What'd you say is the fastest way to do weekly cap of new whatever tombstone for gear? ? It's always hunts. Hunts or dungeon spam is always going to be the answer at the fastest means. Hunts, if you can find a hunt train, takes 4 hunt trains to really nail out an entire weekly cap. On top of that, it's free materia. If you want to do the old ones, which won't help you weekly cap, you can work on tickets. You can get upgrade materials in future patches. There's mounts, there's mains. The hunt is so universally good that not doing the hunt is just out of like spite for the way that it was ages ago. With the way that discords on data centers have organized it now, you can never be late to a hunt if you care and are paying attention to it. So the hunt is always my #1 answer when it comes to tombstones, weekly caps, material, whatever. It's always hunts. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, hiya, hello. See, now everyone's doing 3 hellos. Just a simple main question. Hello to you too, by the way. Do you think we will see Gilgamesh outside of the Hildebrand side quests? The only questions I have as of right now are you planning on doing a guide for Hidden Gorge since it does have a few differences from the other rival wings? Do you have any opinions of the Sonic Pikachu movies? Wow, you crammed 3 questions into that. I was like, oh, there's like no text here. This will be perfect. Nope. No, you're good. So, what's it called? Do you think we'll see Gilgamesh outside of Hildebrand? I mean, I would have said no to Ultros and Chupon ages ago, but we've seen them used in multiple mediums at this point, so yeah, why not? We've also seen, I'm not going to say much more, but we have technically seen Gilgamesh outside of Hildebrand, but, you know, still messing with the Mandervilles, I'd say. I won't say much more for anyone who hasn't done the Stormblood Hildebrand quests, but yeah, I don't see why not. You know, he's kind of preoccupied at the moment, but yeah, at some point, why not? Oh, right, there's other questions. Hidden Gorge, I don't care about PvP. I'll be frank. I don't care. So, no to the Hidden Gorge question. And do you have any opinions on the Sonic Pikachu movies? I know I haven't seen... Oh, I know I actually haven't seen Detective Pikachu. And obviously Sonic's not out yet as of asking this, so... no, unfortunately. I really don't have any more elaborate answers to these questions. How unfortunate. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello. Well, low. So food and hello, by the way. So food and pots are getting better, and when they roll a new expansion, they don't stealth nerf the old food and pots, so the new ones are as strong as the old ones. Well, at least I don't think they do. Does that mean as expansion goes on, the old ultimates will get easy? I mean, the old ultimates get easier by virtue of entire jobs changing. It's not always the case, because it's very, very possible for things like defensive cooldowns and shifting the levels you obtain those to actually make surviving certain old fights a little bit harder. But that being said, no, the old ultimates are already a million times easier than they were back in Stormblood. We did Ultima Weapon Ultimate, and I went on Machinist. Now, I have never raided on Machinist in an Ultimate encounter. I raided on Machinist in 3.4 and did atrociously because I was forced to play it and I just kind of wasn't enthusiastic about the whole thing because I was told I was going to get to play Monk, and then, like, a week before the patch, they're like, hey, can you learn Machinist? I hadn't even leveled Machinist yet, so that was a late learning process. And with me only performing at barely a passable level on Machinist in Ultima Weapon Ultimate, we almost killed it before all 3 of the primals went in the last phase. If I had been on a ranged physical job I was comfortable with, like Bard or Dancer, it probably would have been faster. And we decimated it. Ukab was the same way. We almost killed Ukab before the last Exaflare, and that was with deaths. We had a death at the beginning of the Exaflare phase. We had 2 more deaths at the end of the Exaflare phase, and we still almost killed it before the last set of Exaflares were over. That's how much DPS difference there is now. So the answer is yes, but it's not just because of food or pots. It's because of the whole game changing and adjusting and new potencies being put in the game with old HP values for old content still being there and sinking down, and all sorts of things are a factor there, not just food and pots. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps, long time viewer, but first time asking. Gotta ask a stream-based question. Okay. I want to get into streaming, but all I've got is a PS4, not good Wi-Fi, and I'm shy. Am I screwed? Yes. I'm not going to beat around the bush. As soon as you said not good Wi-Fi, which implies 2 things. 1, you're streaming over Wi-Fi, which doable, especially as technology's gotten better, but certainly not preferred. All you have is a PS4, not necessarily a problem. There are plenty of people who stream directly through the PS4 software, so it's not really a concern. I'm shy. I mean, if your gameplay is really good, I've seen people without mics play just really, really freaking well and do fine. I'd really say the not good Wi-Fi thing is the screwed, because you don't want to stream over Wi-Fi if you don't have to, and if it's not good, then you literally can't stream. So yes, you're screwed. I actually don't think there's that many more questions. So you know what? I'm going to suck it up and see if I can finish them all. If I really feel like I'm going to pass out, I'll stop, though. Hashtag Moisture Happy Mondays. I don't like it. I don't like it. Hello, Happy. How you doing? Just kidding. Thanks for answering my question 2 Mondays ago. How excited are you for 7 Remake? It's going to be an incredible experience. Also, you answered a question last week about White Mage attacks transitioning into White Magic. Doesn't seem like the devs made the decision to prepare for a new job like Geomancer that utilizes Earth-type magic. Or am I just a silly Billy? Happy gaming. I can't say that's not the case, but I also don't think it is the case, because it's not like It's not like white mages don't have that aspect in them. They still have it at the earlier levels. They didn't change all the levels. It just eventually aspects so far to the magic that we use now, especially with all of our exposure to the light, that it's really no surprise. On top of that, again, these aren't like Dia and Holy, 2 of the 3 spells that we're referring to, are not like no-name Final Fantasy abilities. These are like quintessential Final Fantasy abilities. So it's really not that much of a surprise anyway. As for the first question, how excited are you for 7 Remake? Yo, I need it now. I just need to live that long. That's it. I just need to live long enough to see all of 7 Remake. So I'm going to need those like jars from Futurama where they cut the heads off and they just like their heads in jar. I'm going to need that so I can make sure I survive long enough to see all of 7 Remake. Because I'm going to be 30 this year. And I ain't getting any younger. So I just want to love the first part and then survive to see all the other parts. That's my plan right now. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey Haps, it's Reg. It looks like you've been losing a good bit of weight. Would you say that Ring Fit has a lot to do with it? I've been wanting to get it, but still on the edge. What are your thoughts? So when I was doing Ring Fit super consistently, it was great. And I would still highly recommend it to anyone who's looking at it and being like, I actually crave it, and sometimes I grab the ring and I just do like the basic exercises without actually turning the game on, because I often find right now either bad mental state or needing to make up for mistakes and costing myself way more time. Just been kind of reckless with it as of late. And it's no one's fault but my own. Literally, I got to take responsibility for that. But it is fantastic, especially if you take it seriously. Don't pussyfoot around it. You know, take it really seriously. You know, play within your comfort zone, but you know, go ham. Go ham. Also, keep up the amazing content. Remember being a sub back before when I got my first job at like 16 years old. You had 20k subs. My word. Way to make me feel old. Boy, have times changed now that I'm 25. Next FanFest, we got to pick together. You got it. That's what I go to the FanFest for anyway. And thank you for the kind words as well. Continue to enjoy. Hopefully. This one doesn't have a hashtag, but I think I'll grab it because I saw the word question as I was going by. Question for Mondays. A lot of healers pre-endgame tend to complain about DPS feeling boring. How would you think would change, like, say, giving Gravity Holy or the AOW, Art of War, a trait while you're under the effect of your main healing spell that changes the second one to something like Anti-Gravity, Ultima, or Art of Super War? Maybe giving our dots a similar trait. But if you're just changing it with a different name, then you're not really making it any more fun. You're just forcing me to spend a GCD to cast a healing ability, which could potentially be overhealing and not really worth it, or I just always proceed every pull with that, and then I just still spam one button. It doesn't really change anything. The main reason why healers DPS works the way it is because they want you to seamlessly be able to transition between contributing damage to a group and performing your main role in that of a healer. And that is why they don't have an elaborate rotation that needs to be maintained through a very specific set of skills like DPS and tanks do. And that's likely to always be that way from this point on because they need it to be as accessible as possible. So, A, I don't think that's going to happen, what you've suggested, because it's just kind of redundant. And B, there's not really a need to with the way that they're aiming for the job design, regardless of how people feel. It's about how it functions. And that, they've got nailed for the most part. Alright, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, Happy. Greetings from the UK. Hope you are okay and enjoying the last few quiet days before 5.2. Quiet days. Anyway, on to my question. Over in the UK, we have an amazing charity called the Macmillan Cancer Trust. They help families of cancer sufferers with things such as respite care, as well as providing emotional support both during and after the traumatic times. They have recently launched a fundraising event called Gaming Heroes, where people simply live stream for 24 hours and hopefully raise some money. My family have unfortunately had to use these amazing people more than once, and I honestly can say they're some of the most caring and helpful people. I'm glad that you've been able to, what's the word? I want to say benefit, but that makes it sound like, almost like snooty. I don't know. You know what I mean. I'm glad that the charity is able to help you, and hopefully everything's going swimmingly, at least now. My question is in relation to a 24-hour stream, as I know you have done long live streams in the past. At the moment, we are planning to be a 4-man party and play through as much of the 14 main story as possible. Multiple characters level 80 and therefore have plenty of experience, but for some it will be their first time even playing the game. But just wanting to know is roughly how far through the main scenario you think we would be able to make it, and what advice you would give someone who is going to be streaming for 24 hours minus 1 to 2 hours of food and bathroom breaks prepared throughout the day, or peppered throughout the day. Thanks for your help, and as always, thanks for providing helpful, informative, fun content. First of all, it's great that you want to do a 24-hour stream for charity. You know, that's a very common thing nowadays. 24-hour streams are taxing. It's not just a matter of having food, water, any of that stuff prepared. You need to really be mentally prepared for it, because you are, for those 24 hours, especially in something like a fundraiser, you're an entertainer, you're talking, you're trying to, elicit donations, essentially. And if you can't like prepare the charisma or the energy for it, it gets very, very difficult. I'd say lots of sleep the day before, over prepare for what you might need supply wise. And as for how far you'll make it, in 24 hours, you could reasonably make it a very, very long way. But you were playing with people who are completely new, so I reasonably expect to get maybe into the 30s range, depending on how good these people are at games. If these are people who have never touched a video game before, you probably won't get very much further than into the 20s, and you'll probably find yourself like way ahead of them and waiting for them to slowly catch up. It also depends, with all the cutscenes in particular, it's going to be much longer. I wouldn't expect you to actually get much farther than into the 30s, if even that far. But realistically, I wouldn't worry about how far you make it into the main scenario. I would really worry about keeping your own health and your own energy up for a 24-hour stream. It's very easy to hurt your own health doing something like this. And you know what? As great as it is to do for charity, you don't want to hurt yourself, because then it kind of undermines the good thing that you're trying to do. So just play it very safe. Extra supplies. Don't skimp on anything. Take bathroom breaks regularly. Even just without bathroom breaks, just get up and walk around. Highly, highly, highly advise that. All the things you would do to keep yourself healthy normally, do them just more frequently across those 24 hours. You get plenty of sleep afterwards. Plenty of sleep before, plenty of sleep after. Just don't hurt yourself, all right? All right, this one looks short. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, how's it going lately? Remember the beginning of last week's video? No, I'm good otherwise. Thanks for asking. And hopefully you're doing good too. So I was wondering, do you think we get the Kingdom Key, Goofy, and Donald's weapons as Mock Station crossovers? Oh man, let me give you a sad piece of reality with this one. Sora might be part of a Square Enix video game. He is very much a Disney IP. If there's any game that's ever been the perfect example of why we will probably never see Sora in anything Final Fantasy XIV related, it's because he's a Disney property. Record Keeper had a Kingdom Hearts crossover event kind of thing, and there's just the Disney logo plastered everywhere. There would need to be constant reminders of it being Disney related. It's not like Square Enix can just be like, oh, this is our IP. They don't own Sora as much as people like to think they do. And they especially don't own Goofy and Donald. Like Sora, there's maybe a chance. Goofy and Donald, they are going to be paying money to Disney in perpetuity for us to even speak their name in the game. So no. They'll probably never do anything Kingdom Hearts related. Alright, and I think that's going to be the last question I take. There's a few other ones in here, some of them with the hashtag, but I don't really have good answers for them. And then some of them are just comments on my hard drive situation from last week. Yeah, there's like one or two in here. I answered a couple by like actually typing in the comment section. And but otherwise, yeah, I think I'm good with questions for this week. It's a little bit shorter than the other videos, but not by much. It's like 4 minutes or something shorter than the other videos. But yeah, I gotta chill, because I've actually still got like an hour before I gotta go to bed. I've got to get this rendered and uploaded, and I need to actually work on some other videos. Like I said, I have some sponsored videos coming up this week for Dissidia Opera Omnia, and then I have another one that's coming up by the end of the week. So please be on the lookout for both of those. And of course, on top of that, if there's any Final Fantasy XIV news or anything else, there's actually a couple of highlight videos from Twitch that I've been meaning to post, but because I've done a lot of like Twitch to YouTube videos as of late, so I'm like trying, as much as I think some people would like kind of enjoy my reaction to certain things that have happened playing other games right now, a lot of people aren't, and I say this often, it's not great to just take Twitch clips and post them to YouTube unless they're kind of dressed up in a certain way, something that's more fit to the platform. It can work to just take Twitch and send it over with like a couple of cuts and jump cuts here and there, but I try to avoid it more nowadays because YouTube is not Twitch. It is a separate platform, and I like to respect that. But don't be surprised if you see a couple of Twitch clip highlights popping up with some slight editing done, very little things done that hopefully you'll enjoy. But anyway, thank you for watching. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and ask your questions for next week's episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy in the comment section of the video below. Also, again, thanks to our patrons. One last shout out. You guys are awesome for supporting even during the dull times here on YouTube. But thank you for watching, everyone. I will see you next week.